Sandy Says Read. Welcome to the channel. Today we are going to do a review of all the stories in the Enchanted Realms anthology. You might remember that back in July, I think it was about mid-July, I did a review of one of the stories, one of the novellas out of the 13 in this box set. Now we're going to look at them all. And I'm just going to go ahead and warn you guys right now. First of all, I'm an idiot, okay? Earlier this afternoon, this is a Saturday when I'm recording this. Earlier this afternoon, I was doing some work in the yard and I injured myself because I'm an idiot. So if I'm having some difficulty with my right arm because I hurt myself and I can't move it real well. I can't hold things real well. So we're just going to power through this and do what we can. Okay, let's go. The Specs, Enchanted Realms, Tales of Fantasy in Light and Shadow. This is, ready? It's 13,795 pages. At least when you read it on my computer through Kindle, that's how many pages it is. You can also get this on Barnes & Noble for your Nook and Apple iTunes. I think it's also on Kobo. I should know that. Look it up. It's online. It's still available until December or until the end of December. Go get it now. It's like $1.99. Awesome value for 13,000 pages. An awesome value for 13 stories. Awesome fantasy stories. Okay, it was released by Jumpmaster Press at the end of July 2023. So it's out there now. What I'm going to do is give you a quick review and like a summary, sort of the 13 stories. Here we go. And I also will do a link to that review from July because I gave kind of an overview of what this thing is too there. All right, here we go. All right, the first story is The Last Page by Richard Fierce. This one I would classify as a religious, magical fantasy. And Richard can weigh in the comments below and tell me, no, Sandy, you moron. It's some other type of fantasy. But I got a feel for like a religious fantasy. And I'll tell you why in a second here. Okay, it's told in first-person point of view, mostly past tense. We have an introduction, 6 chapters, and an epilogue in this story. The main character is a male. We see him through a couple different phases of his life. We see him as a young lad. And he is sort of kind of like expected to follow in the footsteps of his father, who is a priest in their society. And that's where I see that religious fantasy angle coming in and some of the things that this lad has to get away from, really, in this society. I just see that religious angle in there. And the way Richard handles that it's very intriguing, really, to me, because there's a young lady, her name is Victory, and she is instrumental in helping this young lad see a different way of thinking and a different way of how he could live his life. And she's instrumental in introducing this lad to an actor who will assist him in sort of a transformation. Okay, it's cool. All right, let's move on to the second story, Rogues and Warlocks by R. Kyle Hanna. This one I would classify as like a medieval high fantasy story, action, adventure, okay? This one includes a map of the Zimmer kingdom. I'm probably not pronouncing that the way Kyle would, but the Zimmer kingdom. And this one is in 3 parts, like a 3-act play. It's not divided up into chapters per se, but 3 parts. It's told in third-person point of view, past tense. Our main character, her name is Kara Menlock. And Kara is really cool. We first meet her when she's in a caravan. They're traveling to this city where she's going to do a little heist, okay? And it reminded me of, like several of the scenes in there reminded me of the fun and the adventure in the beginning of that movie, 2006, 16. I think it was 2006 when George and the Dragon came out. Patrick Swayze was in it. So it must have been 2006, right? Okay, George and the Dragon, in that beginning, that opening scene where the priest, monk, there's a monk who's like trying to get away from people who want to burn him at the stake, or right? Okay. That scene, that's what I was picturing that a couple times in this story from Kyle. I enjoyed it greatly. All right, story number 3, A Noteworthy Engagement by Jeanne Hardt. I loved this story. It was, I would classify it as a fairy tale type of fantasy. And maybe Jeanne would weigh in with a different classification for it, but that's the way I saw this. I loved it. Let's see, it's in third person, past tense. There are 7 chapters and an epilogue. Elisa is our main character, and she sings for the king and queen, and there is a villain type character named Zibora who is just jealous over Elisa's beautiful voice, and she puts a curse on Elisa, and this curse is that Elisa has to sing everything she says from then on. Everything she says is in song, and that's the curse. And so, Elisa and her sister and mother are trying to find a way to reverse this or get rid of this curse, and that's the story. And there's like a fairy tale nature to the story. But one of the things that Jeanne did in this story is she wrote out like the little lyric, I can't move my hand, I'm sorry. She wrote out the lyric that Elisa would be saying or singing each time she spoke. And she did that so well. It was so clever, the way we had these little rhyming verses, little rhyming lyric throughout the story. It's just so well done. And then the fairy tale nature of it was well done. It was a cute story. I enjoyed it a lot. I can recommend that one for sure. Let's see. The 4th story is 3 Bells Past Midnight by William Heinzen. This one wasn't broken up into chapters, but, broken up into scenes, throughout the story. This one might be classified as grimdark. It was high adventure, high fantasy, magical fantasy. I enjoyed it a lot. Let's see, it was in third person point of view, past tense. The review for it, I broke down what was going on in the story in that video from July. I encourage you to watch that. But I'm going to read for you a little bit of a little snippet from the story, as we do in these videos, of what Bill wrote, something he wrote in there, because it's just very nicely done. I wish I could move my hand better, because I'm sure the mic is picking up the paper moving. I apologize, you guys. Okay, so it says, lightning flared, illuminating the alley in a brilliant sheet of white as he turned toward the carriage. Shadows spilled from it, thick and liquid-like, rolling across the ground. He considered stepping back, but figured it would not do much good in the long run. Whatever was about to crawl out of that carriage was the sort of thing that caught up with a man, no matter what he did. Isn't that nice? There was suspense building all over that story. I mean, throughout the whole thing, you went from one suspenseful moment to the next. It was very well done. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, we had our main character who was Kel Yanthus, but we also had 2 members of the Night Watch who you cared about and you wanted to see them survive, right? But you wanted to see them survive, but sometimes you worried that they were going to catch Kel and take him into custody, and you didn't want that to happen. I mean, it was just very well done. It was an awesome story. I can recommend 3 Bells Past Midnight. Okay, the 5th story in the anthology is Return of Ancients by Kenyon T. Henry. This one I would classify as high fantasy and magical fantasy. It's told in third person, past tense. It's got 9 chapters. And this one, it had a medieval storytelling flair. We had friends going on a hunt together, going on adventures together, and helping one another. And we had this sense of camaraderie, friends who knew each other from the past and just working together to help one another. And that sense of camaraderie and adventure was going throughout the tale. And that was there was like a sense of honor throughout the tale. I liked that. That sense of honor, very good. Story number 6 is Empress Maura, Rise to Empire by Abigail Keam. This one I would classify as high fantasy. there's a lot that she included with this story for this anthology. There's a lengthy glossary that includes character names and descriptions. There's a map, but the map is very easy to follow. Okay, although the glossary included like a lot of information, the map was easy to follow, and you could see things from the glossary in the map. Nice, easily organized. Then there's a preface, and then 14 chapters. It's told in third-person point of view, past tense. Now, this story from Abigail is obviously a teaser for a lengthier, I don't think it's a trilogy, but a lengthier series about Maura and her rise in the Empire. It includes a battle. There is a war going on. There's a battle going on. And Abigail throws us straight into the action, straight into this battle. It's been raging for a while, and we jump in at the climax of this battle. So it's high energy. Story number 7 is Dagger of Orion by J.L. Lawrence. This one starts like high fantasy and then swaps over to urban fantasy with high fantasy thrown in. It's well done. There are 6 chapters to it. It's told in third-person point of view, past tense. Orion is a dragon. Yeah, our characters are dragons. At the beginning, the high fantasy part of this, they are dragons, and they're dealing with the fact that the humans are going to wipe them out. Right? Humans suck. And the humans are making deals with demons and bad sorcerers and bad wizards and bad stuff and getting rid of the dragons, wiping them out. So 2 dragons, Amand and Arden, these 2 are brother dragons, and one of them goes to, another world with a piece of a stone, a gem that he's going to protect there, and the other dragon stays in Earth, stays in our world with another piece of this gem, of this important stone, and waits for a prophecy to come to unfold. And that unfolding of prophecy happens in our world, in the urban fantasy part of the story. So we have like high fantasy with dragons talking to one another and worrying over the fate of their species, and then we have urban fantasy with humans working to help the dragon. It's nice. I thought that was a clever way to make urban fantasy happen. I liked that. Okay, what else do we have here? Story number 8 is Della and the Dragon Sword by me. It is epic fantasy. There are 8 chapters. It's told in third-person point of view, past tense. And I feel weird doing a review of that, so I'll just tell you it's Della is a young lady in the Choices Unveiled Realm world, and I recommend you check it out. Okay, story number 9, The Fairy Fiddle by Philip Ligon. This is magic fantasy, high fantasy setting. It's all in one chapter, although there are like multiple scenes in there. It's in third-person point of view, past tense. Harry is a musician. He plays a fiddle, obviously, the fairy fiddle. So I connected with Harry because I used to play the violin, which is not quite a fiddle, but I connected with him when at the very outset of the story, there's this awful mead hall manager who kicks him out and throws his fiddle at him, and it breaks. So there goes his fiddle, which he loves, and his livelihood. And it's downhill for a little while. He meets up with a fairy in a glen, and there's a fiddle that this fairy has created, and there's magic around it, and it's not good that Harry picks up this fiddle and plays it. It is not good that he takes in that power. So the whole story is this fiddle perhaps granting wishes to Harry, but there's this give and take and this duplicity, and it's rough for Harry, and so he's got to make decisions and choices, and it's rough for him. Intriguing, very intriguing. All right, story number 10 is Coin of Honor by Carl R. Moore. This one's like, there's a touch of horror, but it's mostly action adventure fantasy. Okay, there are 30 chapters. This thing is intense. It is deep. It's a long story. We follow this main character from boyhood to adulthood. Okay, it's told in third person point of view, past tense. This is the story of Tarek, and I'm really dumbing it down by saying what I'm saying here, but it's the story of Tarek gaining friends and losing friends, and then trying to restore friendships and honor. And I really simplified it by saying that, because so much more is going on. I mean, it's 30 chapters. So much more is going on in there. But when Tarek is younger, he's in a totally different class system. He's in a different caste than the friends he makes at this school that he goes to. And the only reason he gets to go to this school is because he's on a scholarship. And this is like a medieval sort of setting. This is a fantasy setting, but he's getting a scholarship to go to this school because his family has nothing. And so these friends become his friends despite the fact that he is lower class than them. Yet he has more honor than them in the end, we learn. But it's intriguing. It's a good story. It's a long story. There's a lot going on in there. There's a lot for Tarek to go on his arc, and for us to see the other characters and what becomes of them. It takes the telling of a story. All right, number 11, The Rise of Zhengyi by E.G. Rowley. I would say this is Asian fantasy. This is we have a Chinese dragon in this story, and the young man. Oh well, let me start. It's 5 chapters plus the epilogue. It's told in third person point of view, past tense. We have 19-year-old Li Sheng. And Li Sheng is framed for a crime he didn't commit. So he ends up, and I tell you what, I was frustrated with him. I mean, Jeanne Rowley did a really good job of making me frustrated with Li Sheng. With Sheng, I wanted to reach through the page and say, do what I want you to do. You stop being this honorable, good character. Do what I want you to do. But he was a good, honorable character, and he ends up going to a prison, okay? And he's in this prison, but he does get out of it. I'm not going to tell you how. You have to read the story to see how he gets out of this prison situation. But he is injured, and through that injury and through his anger and his wrath at all the injustices done to him, a dragon is attracted to him. This Chinese dragon is attracted to him and is like, hey, you and I are bonded now, and I'm saving you, I'm helping you, we are bonded now, and let's become justice. And they become justice, and they take care of things for people around these villages, and this is like an introduction, an origin story for a series that E.G. Rowley is working on. I believe it's for a series, but this is like the beginning, and what a beginning it is. Yeah, it's very nice. It's always good to see the bad guys get their comeuppance. Finally. All right, story number 12, No More Tears by Stephen L. Shrewsbury. This one is sword and sorcery fantasy. It's all in one chapter. It's not broken into chapters, but it's broken into scenes. It's in third person point of view, past tense. This one is about Rogan, and he is a Celt with a K. He's a Celt warrior, and he's visiting a whorehouse. So when the whorehouse is set on fire with him inside, so he has to get out of there, and he doesn't join up with his troops right away because he's taken captive by the baddies. I mean, there's a bad wizard who's doing bad things, trafficking foreigners' children, and Rogan is, deep down, he's a good guy, right? I mean, yeah, he was visiting a whorehouse, and yeah, he smashes skulls for a living, but deep down, he's a good guy. And so he assists some of these prisoners, he assists some of these children. He's going to help where he can help, because he's a good guy. All right. Let's see, what did I write here? Bad guys and wizards are trafficking foreigners' children to perform demonic rituals, so they'd rather Rogan not interrupt that. That's what I wrote down. Yeah. Okay, and then 13, story number 13, the final in our fantasy anthology is Chronicles of Ave-Embrace of the Sun by Stephen Zimmer. This is all in one chapter, broken up by scenes. And I would classify this one as religious fantasy, a high fantasy as well. It's in third-person point of view, past tense. And this one is elaborate and lovely. And let me explain what I mean. It's lovely and to a point, and then it becomes just like soul-crushing, okay? This story, it's about, and I might mispronounce his name, but Chikawa. Chikawa is an older warrior who has served his emperor well. He has served his people well. He's like living out his days as quietly as he can. But these three youth from his tribe, from his people, have done something stupid. They have killed a messenger who was supposed to be going back to the emperor, and that messenger was going to basically tell on the people for some like slight infraction, right? I mean, they all would have gotten in trouble, but it would have been a slight infraction. So these three youth killed this messenger. And now Chikawa is like, you guys, do you understand what you have done? All of our people will be punished for what you have done. The three of you did this, but all of us will be punished. So Chikawa goes to the main city. He goes to the emperor to basically atone for what these three have done. He goes there, he goes to one of his friends that he has fought side by side with in wars of the past. That friend is Guatemek. I may be pronouncing that one wrong, but he goes to Guatemek and he says, hey, will you help me? I need to go to the emperor. I need to petition on behalf of my people. Will you help me? Guatemek is like, of course I will help you. You are my friend. They go, and the emperor is like, what makes you think you can approach me? What makes you think that you could atone for this bad thing that three of your people have done? Let me think. Okay, here's what you can do. You can go and win this next war for me. Go do that. And I'm not going to give away what happens next. What I want to do is tell you that this particular story, Stephen has written it with eloquence. It is written, it's not written like a fast action, high stakes, quick, like Three Bells Past Midnight is written in a fast pace. Every scene is fast moving. This story that Stephen has written, you want to take your time. You want to see the things that he's showing you because he's describing beautiful things. He's describing emotions. He's describing lovely things. He's describing sounds. I mean, as you're going into the emperor's presence, you're seeing, you're smelling, you're hearing things, and it's just a feast for the senses. The whole story is. So by the time we get to the climax of the story and you discover who has betrayed who has betrayed who has betrayed who, it punches you in the gut. Some of it you kind of expected. Of some of the betrayals, you saw them coming and you're like, darn it, I was hoping that wasn't going to happen. And it did, and now I'm sad. But then there's a twist and something else happens and you're like, oh my gosh, look at the honor in this person. Look at the honor in this person. Look at the nice. It's very nicely done. What an awesome ending to the 13 stories. The ending of Chronicles of Ave is beautiful. It's beautiful in its descriptions. It's beautiful in what it means. It's beautiful in its symbolism. It's a lovely ending to Enchanted Realms. And I'm not going to give away more than that. It's just lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, thumbs up for awesome fantasy, awesome Enchanted Realms. Thumbs up for all these good stories coming together in one spot. Yay! I welcome you to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell notification icon so that you'll know each time I do these random things. Thank you so much for tuning in.